citizen.
Out of many
we are world citizens, same vision is for equal rights and justice for the people them. What's happening to this beautiful world that we're living in? World citizen, lift up your voices.
Welcome everybody to another episode of the People Powered Planet podcast, where each week we talk about solutions and interview great solutionaries. And of course, that all started with one of the most amazing solutionaries who touched my life, Gary Davis, a song and dance man on Broadway who was plunged into dropping bombs on cities in World War II and so horrified about what his bombs had done that he struggled, meditated, and came up with an amazing realization that we are all members of one planet, that we already are one planet, and that all we have to do is snap out of the false notion that we're locked into these nation states and it's us against them and so on, to realize that we are all members of planet Earth. And he became world citizen #1, gave up national citizenship, and lived for 65 years of his life as a citizen of no nation, only the world. And together with him, we explored how can we actually help invent, how can we use system engineering to actually create the system change? Because when you realize it, the problems we're facing in the world are caused not by bad people. People can be good or bad depending on what system you put them in. You can take the same person and put them in one system and they'll be horrible, another system, and they'll be loving their neighbors and taking care of each other and assisting. How can we create the fundamental system change that would save our planet? Now, recently, many of you got to see the speech by Michael Douglas that we shared with you. And in Michael Douglas had a tragic diagnosis and is nearing what could have been the end of his life. But nevertheless, he still managed to give an amazing speech to the Association of World Parliamentarians. And in his talk as a United Nations Messenger of Peace, he said, right now, the world is in more danger than it has ever been in my lifetime. And he said, telling stories can change the world. Telling stories can change the world. Well, that's the exact same realization I came through when I was working with first the American Friends Service Committee and then a group of retired military officers in Washington, working with Paul Newman and others to help people realize the incredible danger of nuclear war. I was the nuclear war researcher on the ABC TV special The Day After, revealing the incredible horror of what it would do to our world, unbelievable destruction of our precious planet Earth. And after we made that Day After, and people all across the country saw it, and in fact, it did affect Ronald Reagan enough to have him step back from the brink of nuclear war, but we still were racing toward nuclear devastation, an arms race, a military-industrial complex out of control. And I said, what can we do? And that's when in my deep meditation, I realized, hey, if I've discovered in my own life that what we imagine, what we picture, helps create that reality, then why are we constantly making movies about how horrible things are and how awful the world is going to be and what a terrible future we have? Why don't we give people a vision of the wonderful, beautiful future we can have, something to pull us toward it, instead of trying just only to repel us from the evil? And we do have to repel from the evil, but we are so much more effective if we're drawn into and attracted into a beautiful, uplifting vision of the future. So I said to Paul Newman, why doesn't somebody in Hollywood make a feature film that takes us into the world we'd love to live in, a positive future? And he thought a minute and he said, well, Arthur, I don't think anybody in Hollywood knows what a peaceful future would look like. Why don't you do it? Well, that set me on a journey to discovering and working and researching and imagineering how can we make a future that works. And I came up with a proposal, many proposals. One of them was for astrocops, peace engineers of the 21st century. And we imagined in some of our sketches, we imagined that we would have a rotating satellite. This was way back I think it was 1991, I believe it was, that we would have rotating satellites with people using satellite imagery and other things to detect where there were problems in the world and aiding people working on one of the aiding people in trying to solve the problems of the world. One of the things that Gary Davis, our mentor in this, was very big into was what he called cybernetics. He had a commissioner of cybernetics, and cybernetics means integrated systems with automatic feedback loops that kind of automatically adjust and kind of fix things that when they get out of balance and kilter with these satellite systems detecting, okay, here's a place on the Earth where there's terrific, where the combined EKG waves of people are showing terrific distress coming from that area. Okay, how can we help them both with on-the-spot observations and astrocops going in helping to defuse problems, but also other system changes that can help alleviate the conflict. What's the cause of the conflict? How can we get at the bottom of it? And where we come together as a planet to create the vision of what we want, where we have these synergistic, interactive meetings like these Zooms, but with people on opposite sides of the issues, and then using some of these wonderful technologies for conflict resolution and coming into into alignment with other people, and using those techniques to merge to create what is the vision, what is the goal, what is the intention of the people of Earth? What would we like? And the incredible thing is that when you get people from opposite sides of issues and you get them to tell their stories and get beyond who's right and wrong and get into what they want for their future, there's amazing similarity across the planet. I mean, I boogie board with somebody who's rabidly supports the plunge toward really, I think the elimination of democracy, but the whole democratic system was voting. It was failing. It was the win-lose system. Both parties were dominated by money and not by what people really want. And that's because that system with 51% winning and everybody else losing doesn't bring us together to common grounds. It's a race to the bottom. And yet, even though he's on the opposite side, he's a wonderful person. He helps people in the community. We go boogie boarding together. And see, everybody has that good in them. It's the broken system that's pitching people against each other. And so, in our vision of how we create this people-powered planet, one of the things we pictured was that people interactively come together and they create a kind of people-powered enforcement that doesn't depend on military force or arms or war. And today we're going to talk about an incredible example that was just very recently in the New York Times. There was a wonderful article in the New York Times saying that I love avocados. I love guacamole. And I was shocked to read that American consumption of healthy avocados was causing thousands of acres of forest to be razed at breakneck pace, stolen water and drained aquifers, abductions and killings, according to the New York Times, until the forest guardians stepped in. Now, who are the forest guardians and what did they do? I'm going to start off with a clip that's not in Michoacan, Mexico, where the avocado challenge was happening. It's a worldwide organization, Forest Guardians, and I'm going to show you a little excerpt of a full documentary about people all over the world and the Forest Guardians and what they're doing. Go ahead and roll with that clip, please.
I see a documentary movie about Extinction Rebellion. I was so impressed of how organized they was and how they can close London down. So I called them and say, we need help. We have a lot of problems here with the forest logging. And then we create a working group, and from the working group it's coming this Forest Rebellion.
Henrik Andersson contacted Extinction Rebellion and then met with Landfam.
Every other day there could be a spot.
In this time I was responsible for social media for an activist group. And in the end of the interview I just felt like a huge responsibility from the majority population to do something about Swedish exploitation and colonialism in Sápmi. From there, we started off planning our first action, which then grew into forest rebellion.
For several months, Forest Rebellion has been continuing the actions initiated by Greenpeace in the Muonio region. The Swedish state does not officially consider this area to be Sami land, so forestry companies can carry out clear cutting without consulting the reindeer herders. The team has settled on site to monitor whether further logging is planned and maintain pressure on the forestry companies.
The logging around here in Sápmi happens during winter time, and a forest can be gone within a couple of days already. So we're up here to basically make sure that there's no logging happening and to be proactive so we can see when there's a signs of logging so we can stop it before it happens. There's been a study done by Swedish University that within 20 years, if we continue logging in the same way that we're doing right now, all the forests will have been clear cut. And when we come here, they ask us, why didn't you come 20 years ago when there actually was forest to save? Now it's just the last bits.
Oops, quite soon we get to the road to the left towards the logging site.
The Sveaskog company is planning to clear cut next to a reindeer corral and destroy the last primary forests in the area.
This is a marking from Sveaskog. They are marking the site which is going to be logged here, and it's basically all around the corral. And if you look up on the branches, you can see this black hanging lichen. It's extra bad, not just logging around the corral, but also with the very few hanging lichen forest that's left. This place really showcases the conflict that's going on here. We put up these signs with Greenpeace on all the logging sites in Muonio, and it says do not log. Consultation with the Sami village is missing. There's no consultation basically.
Since its creation, Forest Rebellion has implemented an operating procedure based on direct action and non-violent physical engagement in order to block forestry machinery and raise public awareness. In January 2022, Greenpeace called on Forest Rebellion and several other associations to join forces and draw attention to the situation in the Sami village of Muonio.
Greenpeace är på plats här i Muonio sameby tillsammans med skogsupproret och patrullerar avverkningshotade skogar.
Linja and Lan are both on the blockade, which makes news headlines, forcing the Sveaskog Forestry Company to react.
Tillsammans med Greenpeace. Och vi gör oss redo för en aktion ifall avverkning skulle påbörjas här. Eftersom att samråd med Muonio fortfarande saknas tillsammans med Sveaskog.
Många avverkningsanmälningar här i Muonio är kontinuitetsskogar som är livsviktiga både som kolsänkor och som hem för många hotade arter.
Sveaskog halted the logging, and a few days later, its CEO announced that he would meet and consult with Muonio's representatives himself.
The forest guardians, then it grows out of, you see all around the world, through Africa and all over, people taking steps to save the essential forests that are the vital lifeblood of our planet. And recently, there was a rather amazing article in the New York Times, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and show you some little clips, some little excerpts from that article that I think is so empowering to me, because it's a perfect example of how this people-powered enforcement that we can create, once we and the people create the intention for the planet with our Zoom-like groups that create these synergistic groups that interact with other groups to help bring to the top what is the will of the people of the entire planet. We create world governance by creating that vision, that intention. What is the kind of thing we want? What are the problems that we want to overcome? Very similar to the whole Declaration of Independence. And then we create the systems that enable us to reach that goal. In order to reach that goal, and I'm going to go ahead and share this article here. So now you can all see this excerpt from the New York Times. The clip is there. We can put that in the chat too if you want to see the whole article. But in Mexico, the avocado industry now faces a choice: stop deforesting or lose access to the billion-dollar market in the States. And so what's happened is, as I mentioned in the beginning, thousands of acres were being destroyed, and the cartels were involved and corrupt politicians, and it seemed like an impossible situation. There was no way to overcome this. And yet what happened from this lucrative trade with cartels and so on is that even though these traditional activities all failed, forest guardians had a different approach. Okay, the initiative, a certification program for orchards and companies, aims to halt the decades of forest loss by showing in real time with satellite images and so on. They show exactly where it's happening, what's happening. They report it to people. He said we had never, ever reached the point that we're reaching now of being able to actually put a stop to deforestation. He said many parties are involved, the criminal gangs and so on, the corrupt landowners and so on. The Forest Guardian program in Michoacan is an advanced satellite surveillance system used to combat illegal deforestation in coordination with these environmental groups. And what they do is with this high-tech system, they have satellite surveillance, an automatic complaint process, forest fire monitoring, the certification program, public reporting, allowing the public to report on it, and they're combating and protecting this critical forest area, especially around the monarch butterfly biosphere reserve, and preserving that bioactivity. Now, if we go to the website, what we depicted in this people-powered planet is that anybody could interactively share the data, share the problems, and then learn the best practice of other people around, and could interactively find what other people are doing around the world to solve it, and then they could come together to create solutions. Well, when you go to the Guardian Forestall, the Forest Guardians, you get all this forest cover alert, water pond detection, burned area detection, early fire warning, all these things. But there's a collective reporting system that everybody can be involved in. First of all, you identify the affected area. I'm down here, and this place where I was precious for my family for decades is now being destroyed by this logging. You describe the environmental damage, you indicate who caused the damage, and you anonymously, and after you do that report, then there's validation with Centennial 2.1 and contextual data files. In other words, they read the road blueprints, they look from the satellites, they confirm that your complaint is accurate, and then they refer it to authorities and partners. You're able to see the status on a public drive. You'll see the status on a public dashboard. There's a public dashboard. You issued your complaint. You see the forest guardians sweeping in. You see people who want to help join you, maybe physically use their bodies to block the deforestation machines. And it's sort of an all interactive kind of planet thing where we're coming together, and we have that power as people to change things. Gary Davis would put it. He said, we don't have to be down here begging and pleading the politicians to make peace, because they can't do it. They're on the wrong civic level. Their loyalty is to the part, not to the whole. We, the people, are the sovereigns. We're the ones who create government. Just as people invented a new system in 1776, we can create a completely new system, much more appropriate for the future. And the key thing is, we don't have to work out all the details. If we can depict this new kind of system in movies and TV shows, and if week after week people can see, watch programs where planet guardians in the future are coming together and solving these problems, young people can be inspired and they can fill in all the tools. Star Trek created inventions, and then the inventions were created, and much of NASA came out of inventions that were created in Star Trek. And we envisioned for our astrocops this like a toy kids could play with. That's a multi-purpose peace engineering tool. This little glove-like toy could be, kids could imagine all kinds of, putting out fine lasers that could lock onto the Shinmin point in the earlobe, which is a place that helps calm people down who are violent, or it could project a person's image back at them. So if someone's coming at you angry and mad, they're seeing their own holographic image, angry and mad, and what they look like, and kind of giving them pause, or just so many creative peace engineering tools. Well, anyway, the point is that we're seeing this example that I think is a stunning example of people-powered enforcement in actual action that's actually working. And I think that as we do this, we can answer the question that came at the beginning of this. We said, can people power have more power than politicians to save our planet? And I think the answer is that people power could have more power than politicians to protect our pretty planet. Look at this pretty planet from outer space. Nothing else in there is so beautiful. People power could have more power than politicians to protect our pretty planet if people put a peopled planet before profits. I mean, the planet's going to still be here, but it won't be peopled unless we put people before profits. So I hope everyone will join me in helping to visualize, create, as we do in this podcast, the images and visions of what we want and how it can be done, and then put that into movies and TV shows, and then help inspire the world to a better way. We can save our pretty planet.
World citizen, lift up your voices. Oh, you know we got something to say. All we need is the same directions, heading in one way.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to our channel and like this video.